Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
I will.
Sorry, Debbie.
Jeff?
Here.
Mark?
Here.
Brandy? Here. Nancy?
Yes.
Kurt?
Here.
Eric?
Eric is calling in, so he'll be part of the meeting when he gets connected.
Jay?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, when Eric gets connected to us, we will have a full assembly. And it's now time for the voluntary Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
Pledge allegiance to
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So that, was that you, Eric? Yes.
Yep, Mark, I'm here.
Okay, great. One thing I'd like to mention before we move on to the next item on the agenda, Member Morrell, Mucci, and myself were sworn into office in the clerk's office on October 6th. It was all done, we were at different times, but just for the record that we've been sworn into office. Another thing I'd like to mention is during the meeting, people wanting to speak need to be recognized by the chair. It makes the meeting go smoother. I'd like to try to have it happen that way. Now, the next thing on the agenda is approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from October 2nd, 2017 regular meeting minutes and the special meeting of October 6th, 2017. I would assume we could do those both at the same time unless there's corrections.
I move to approve both the October 2nd and October 6th meeting minutes.
Second that. Okay, motion's been made by Member Stan Greger and seconded by Member Walhuter to approve the minutes of those two meetings. So without any objection, we'll consider those approved. Okay, now the next item on the agenda, item 4, amendment and approval of today's meeting agenda. Excuse me, is there any amendments to tonight's agenda by any of the members? Mr. Mucci.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to talk about how we go about doing this, but talking about the vice mayor election or selection process. And I also wanted to get some clarification on, we've had a couple people who've addressed the assembly with written comments, and I wanted to find out what the assembly's normal response are to letters like that. I want to know if we usually respond to them in a formal setting or we just ignore them. So I wanted to talk about that.
Okay, you want to add that under discussion items?
Sure.
So to the ones we already have on there?
Yes, please.
Okay, could you bring that up when we get to that point in the meeting then? Okay, everybody all right with that amendment to add those? Okay. Any other amendments to today's agenda? If there isn't, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member Stan Greger, seconded by Member Strands. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Next item is public hearings. We have two public hearings. So,
Sorry.
we've got two public hearings tonight. First public hearing is on ordinance 2017-13, and this is an ordinance providing for repeal of Chapter 3.16 of the Code of the former city of Petersburg, and that's now Service Area 1. Anybody in the audience willing or wanting to participate in this public hearing? Okay, seeing no interest, that public hearing is closed. The next public hearing is on ordinance 2017-14. This is an ordinance providing for Chapter 3.08 of the Municipal Code entitled Assembly and Mayor. It's updating current language to reflect borough incorporation. Anybody in the audience that wants to participate in this public hearing? Seeing none, public hearing is closed on ordinance 2017-14. That brings us to bid awards. There's one bid award this evening, and this is recommended by Director Hagerman, and it's the Power and Light Department is recommending the Assembly award the retaining wall project to Rainforest Contracting Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $48,025. I'd entertain a motion to approve that bid award.
So move.
Second.
Okay, motion been made by Member Strand, seconded by Member Mucci, I believe. Is there any discussion? Okay, clerk call the roll.
Nancy?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
And Cindy. Oh, sorry. And Mark.
Yes.
I haven't changed my form.
The echo is kind of confusing. I guess we'll get used to it. Oh, sure, yeah, whatever, yeah. Okay, so the retaining wall project bid award is approved unanimously.
Eric, you still there? Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Oh, it was the,
I'm wondering if it's...
okay, perfect. Now, we had a little echo going here in the room, so we corrected it. Sorry for the confusion on the radio land there. Next item on the agenda is visitors' views related to items on today's agenda. Is there any visitors in the audience with views related to today's agenda? Please step to the microphone and state your name and who you represent, please.
My name is John Hogue. I'm here representing myself. There are two items I would like to address. The first is the issue of Steve's performance evaluation consideration contract extension. I am well aware that some of you have run for office opposing Steve's continuation as a manager. I would urge you to rethink that. I spent 25 years negotiating agreements throughout the Pacific Northwest with entities as large as the state of Oregon and cities as small as this one. It was my experience that finding good administrators is a very tough challenge, and keeping good administrators is one also. Disagree with people on certain items, but should recognize their skill set. Steve's evaluation, the highest marks are for fiscal responsibility. You are going to be facing a fiscal crisis the next few years as the state of Alaska is going to be unable to continue funding. Yes, and I would urge you to consider that replacing Steve will put the borough in a bad position. You'll be trying to recruit somebody, having just terminated somebody's employment. You'll be trying to recruit somebody at the time when you're trying to cut the budget, and it's going to cost you a lot of money to recruit somebody. And as we know from past experience, you have in the past had city administrators that made Steve look like a shining light that actually he is most of the time. So I would urge you to consider that looking forward. The second thing is you folks are going to have a lot of disagreements going forward because some of you will have different philosophies than others, and I would urge everyone to look at the charter. It is interesting that tonight you're looking at the Chapter 3 of the Code. It doesn't have some of the provisions of the charter. For instance, Mr. Mayor, sir, remember what Al Dwyer said. There are limitations to your power. You have no administrative duties. And that is Section 2.05A of the Charter. No assembly person can try to direct or control individual employees. That's the manager's job. Your job is to give the manager direction. I expect there's going to be disagreements with that, and how you manage those disagreements will be very important for how effective you folks are, and I wish you luck with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience with views related to items on today's agenda? Okay, we'll move to the next item on the agenda this evening, and that's visitors' views unrelated to topics on today's agenda.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Tremblay. I'm representing myself. So I am here on the topic of the Petersburg Housing Coalition that's been meeting regularly since June of this summer. I thought I'd come and give a quick update about, or I guess, be here, do a quick summary of what we've been doing, and then I'm also talking about how we could use the Borough Assembly's help going forward. So we've been meeting since June. This is a growing coalition of direct service providers as well as concerned community members. And that includes dedicated volunteers who have been putting on an increasing number of service-based opportunities for the most vulnerable in our community. because it's a pretty growing consensus among people that have direct knowledge. We have a growing number of people who are living without long-term stable housing. And so we've seen this even in the form of the borough manager's past updates to the assembly. I remember last winter hearing about people breaking into boats for a place to sleep. We're hearing it now in reports of people being arrested for trespassing, for camping. And these are people that have nowhere to go. They're not allowed to be anywhere really officially. And so we're trying to find a way to do that in a way that keeps everyone healthy and safe, people's property safe, but also helps people stay healthy and literally survive. Because once people are living in the elements, it becomes a very tenuous situation, and it's October. So we're meeting regularly. We have a meeting again tomorrow at 6:30 in the public library community room, and everyone is welcome. Because, we have short-term goals, we have long-term goals, and we need everyone's help meeting them. As far as short-term goals, warming shelter, like I mentioned, how do we signal boost the people that are doing those free dinners and free outreach events? How do we help connect volunteers who want to help to the people doing that? And then long-term is kind of where the borough comes in, is who can we partner with? How can we help there be more affordable housing in town? Because we know that even people that are paying rent right now, a lot of them, a significant portion, are paying too much of their monthly income on rent, making when another emergency comes up, they don't quite have the funds to make that happen, and just kind of a cycle from there. And so what I gave to you, I don't know if I'm supposed to read it or if we're supposed to read it at all, is basically a request. We need your help. Because one of the big, I think, misconceptions about an issue like this is, why should we spend money on people who aren't contributing to town? But basically, we're already hearing that we are spending money on this growing number of people. We're hearing that they're requesting help from EMT services because they're near hypothermic, but there's no place for EMT to take them. They're not necessarily eligible to go to the hospital. So that's one service there. They're getting increasingly arrested in greater numbers. Once people are in jail or in the system, they cost us money that way. Once their health deteriorates and they're getting treated, but obviously they don't have health insurance, or I shouldn't say that. Chances are they don't have health insurance. We as a society are paying for that as well. So I'm asking for your help in this letter to basically figure out how it's affecting our borough departments, find any numbers, find any stories, because right now we have a lot of anecdotes from people that are doing direct service, but a lot of those folks are tied with, they need to be confidential in the way that they talk about things, and so it's a small town. We don't really want Gossip Mill to be how we find this out. If they have numbers, we'd like to know them. It would help us as we go forward. So some forward motion on this would be really great. Brian Wilson from the Alaska Housing and Homelessness Coalition was here. He was the executive director. And he actually met with Senator Murkowski this late summer. And when he met with her, she said, I heard about this community that's doing work in Alaska, in Southeast. And he goes, what? Like, which one? And it turned out it was us. They heard the KFSK news story. And so that was pretty amazing. And so I see in the agenda that there's a proposed visit to D.C. in January. And it could be pretty great to be able to show the senator that we're making some local-based efforts to try to do our part to potentially be recipients of any federal aid that could be possible down the line. Could be pretty great, because I think that we have a lot of creative thinkers in town. We have a lot of resources, and I know that we care a lot for our community members, so if we could see that forward, that'd be great. I know this is kind of a big topic, and I don't know if I'm supposed to take questions, but if anyone has any questions.
Yeah. It's just, I think you guys were trying to get out there and try to find out how many people are actually affected by this. Have you guys got any kind of rough estimates, on what we're looking at?
Well, we've been, so there are two surveys. We've been talking a lot about surveys, and there are two right now. There's one that we created, and then there's one that Alaska Housing and Homelessness Coalition helped us link up to. So that's the one, the Housing and Homelessness Coalition one. That's the one that is part of a bigger database, and we're not contributing to that one yet because we're kind of doing our own fact-finding mission. And so right now with our own survey, we have not necessarily been able to, it's hard to talk about it in a way that doesn't make it sound like we're targeting people, but we haven't quite made that direct connection to the folks that are most at need in town. We've done 20 surveys. A lot of the folks that are covered under that survey are people who, if it weren't for Section 8 housing, would not be able to afford where they're living right now. And so that kind of is a different level of the situation where we're at, because that's another potential issue is now that we no longer have that branch of the Alaska Housing branch here. And that's who they're supposed to go to for help with that and getting signed up for that housing. It could be a pretty substantial barrier going forward. So yeah, so we have the survey. We're still working on, it's really relationship building. And so that's why we need more people, because right now it's a volunteer group who are already pretty busy people. Getting more people who can, you know, start helping at the dinners once a week, develop more relationships with folks, and then go out that way is kind of, and so that's kind of why we're doing, or why I thought it might be nice to get these numbers from, you know, if we can get the police department to do counts on how many arrests they have that are related to folks searching for housing or homelessness. Same with EMT. We have folks at the library. We know Parks and Rec deals with it too. But right now, again, that's anecdotal. We don't have their stats or their stories. So that's kind of the hope, is getting another form. So we are going forward with the survey, making some making progress, but this is the kind of thing that just kind of keeps tenacity. And so, again, going back to the fact that we're a group of volunteers, having it somewhat institutionalized at the borough level helps with continuation of that progress too, because we get busy and caught up with our jobs or other work, but if the borough is able to come in and supplement that with their excellent professionals, then that's another awesome step. So I hope that answered your question, didn't make it more confusing. Okay.
Any other questions? Member Strand?
Could you tell us again what time? Tomorrow?
Yeah. Yes, tomorrow. If any of this is appealing to anyone, tomorrow, Tuesday, at 6:30 p.m. in the Public Library Community Room. And we're looking for folks, if they're interested in long-term housing solutions, short-term, how can I help this winter solutions. If you have an hour a week or an hour a month, we'll take it. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, or is that it? Thank you. Any other people in the audience with views unrelated to items on today's agenda? Okay, seeing none.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. I realized that we forgot to read the letters over visitors' views related to the agenda. Should I do that now?
You know, I was thinking about that earlier. It'd be better to, more appropriate to read them now than under communications, I think, with what's coming up on the agenda. So would you do
Okay,
that?
and I have to admit that I gave out my copy, so I'm going to come borrow copies from someone.
I've got them right here on top of the file.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a letter from Cindy Lagodakis. I am writing in support of Borough Manager Steve Giesbrecht and in support of the job evaluation previously considered by the Assembly. Since first being appointed to the Assembly in 2013, Steve has been most helpful to me in discussing the issues and challenges facing the borough, and has been instrumental in identifying ways to address those challenges. Long before the current state budget crisis, he sought to retain funds for deferred maintenance and other needs for each department, and has always been mindful of the budget. As a result, independent auditors have consistently recognized our borough's financial soundness, especially in comparison to some of the other small communities in the state. Steve is knowledgeable, brings new ideas to the table, and has a good working relationship with borough staff. Indeed, several department heads have given him top marks over the borough managers that have served in the past. Under his administration, the borough has completed a fair number of large plans and projects that have upgraded infrastructure and put us in a much better position as we face serious downturns in funding from state and federal governments, with relatively little interruption to conducting borough business. Even so, one Assembly member challenged Steve's judgment and authority in making a recent personnel decision to consolidate staff. Steve's goal was to get needed project work identified as well as to save costs over time while maintaining safe operations. As outlined in borough and in state code and statute, administration, including hiring and firing of employees, is Steve's role. Under the new department configuration, needed projects, including some that address safety situations, were in fact outlined, prioritized, and initiated in short order. Now, however, the Assembly is looking at the expense of recruiting and hiring a new supervisory position, which will add to the borough budget and will not guarantee that the individual hired will be exactly what is sought. The Assembly will need to be very clear in what they desire and in how much latitude Steve is being given in recruiting for and in supervising this position. They will also need to give some specific direction for addressing the shortfall in budget that recruiting and hiring will create. Though I hope the Assembly will reconsider hiring this new additional employee, it is important to remember that no matter what the decision, the borough manager reports to the Assembly as a body, not just to one individual. I have found Steve always willing to discuss any aspect of borough business, willing to try new ideas and strategies, respectful of employees and the public, and conscientious in his work. If anything, he doesn't take enough time for himself. He is worth every penny we pay him and then some. I wholeheartedly support giving him a long-deserved raise and hope he chooses to remain our borough manager for some time to come. Sincerely, Cindy Lagodakis. And this is from Bo Varsano. To the Petersburg Borough Assembly and Borough Manager. When the Petersburg Borough is running smoothly, with an organized and well-considered budget, a happy and efficiently operating staff, and infrastructure projects proceeding on schedule, it's easy to overlook the important role the borough manager plays in our town. None of this could happen without a steady hand at the helm, keeping everyone working together and pulling in the same direction. The borough manager may have the most challenging and complex job in town, and Steve Giesbrecht has done a great job despite some difficult fiscal times, numerous challenging projects, and an unimaginably difficult personal tragedy. His articulate and well-informed presence at Assembly meetings has greatly contributed to the civil and constructive manner in which the Borough Assembly has conducted the city's business over the last few years. Bo Varsano, Farragut Bay. And this is from Marya Smets. To the Assembly, I just wanted to put in a word of strong support for our borough manager. I feel that during Steve's tenure, he has done an outstanding job of supporting our borough staff and guiding our community through some difficult times. He is extremely competent and has helped with some very important changes in our town, including the new library construction, the Petersburg Comprehensive Plan, construction of the drive-down dock, and the municipal building remodel. I am in support of offering him a raise to show our appreciation of his efficient, thoughtful, and steadfast work for the borough. We are lucky to have him as our borough manager. Thank you for your time. Marya Smets, Farragut Bay. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie, for reading those. Next item on the agenda this evening is item 9, that's board, commission, and committee report. There's nothing listed under that item. The next item is 10, that's consent agenda. There's 2 items there. The first one is acceptance of a Rasmussen grant to the Petersburg Public Library in the amount of $15,000. The second topic on the consent agenda is approval of local emergency planning committee membership applications. We've had one from Patrick Fowler and Barry Youngberg. So I would entertain a motion to approve those 2 items on today's consent agenda.
I'll move.
Second.
Motion been made by Member Strand and seconded by Member Walhooter. So all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we got you loud and clear, Eric, so we're echoing again, but that's okay. Consent agenda is approved. Report of other officers. That brings us to the mayor's report. And I would ask Debbie to read the seats that need to be filled. So we're asking for letters of interest for these positions.
You bet. The borough is seeking letters of interest from qualified borough residents to serve our community by filling a vacant board, commission, or committee seat. Borough residents appointed to the following seats will serve until October 2018 municipal election. We have 2 vacant seats on the hospital board, 1 vacant seat on the planning commission, and 3 vacant seats on the public safety advisory board. In addition, the Historic Preservation Committee has 3 vacant seats. One for an archaeologist or at-large member with a term ending December 31st of this year, 2017. One for a Planning Commission representative with a term ending December 31st of 2018. And one for an Assembly member representative with a term ending December 31st of 2019.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, on the mayor's report today, we're going to, Southeast Alaska Power Agency Board of Directors, the Petersburg Borough will need to appoint 1 voting member and 1 alternate to the SEPA board for the calendar year 2018. And SEPA likes to have those names from the member communities to them by December, so I was hoping to receive letters until maybe a couple days before the second meeting in November, and then we will appoint at that time 1 voting member and 1 alternate. Alaska Municipal League Annual Local Government Conference. Member Merle and myself are attending, and I'm not sure if anybody else is going to the AML. Nope, Debbie says that's it so far. I think it's very worthwhile for newly elected officials to go to the newly elected officials seminar. It's very informative. But also, Southern Southeast Regional Aquaculture Association will hold their regular board meeting in Petersburg on Friday, October 27th, 2017, in the Assembly Chambers of the Municipal Building. A public reception will be held on Thursday, October 26th, 2017, at the Sons of Norway Hall from 6:30 to 8:30. And I'm sure most people have heard the news, but I'm going to bring it up again. Glorian Wolin, recognized by His Majesty King Harold V of Norway. Petersburg's Harbor Master Glo Wolin was recently honored by His Majesty King Harold V for her dedication to promoting and maintaining Norwegian values in Alaska. His Majesty King Harold V sent Norwegian Ambassador Corey Oos to Petersburg to present Glo with the Medal of St. Olaf. And I've found out that there are quite a few of them that are given out, but it's quite a prestigious award. So congratulations, Glo. We're proud of you for that. Also, a couple things I'd like to discuss with the Assembly is changing of the meeting date for the first meeting in November. I don't have my calendar out, but I believe it's scheduled to be the 6th at noon, and I will be returning on the afternoon plane. So if the Assembly still wants to have the meeting at noon, that's fine. Debbie?
Yes, I was supposed to tell you or mention to you before the meeting, and I forgot, that actually our assessor will be here for the November 6th meeting. He will be leaving the morning of the 7th, so we do need to have the meeting on the 6th.
That clarifies that.
Okay, well, that's fine. And then, so I was going to appoint a vice mayor. That was the next thing I was going to bring up at the second meeting the first meeting in November. So I won't be here to do that. So,
Unless you change the time of the meeting, still have it on the 6th.
well, that's what I would like to do. Is Member Walter?
I'd like to make a motion that we just change that meeting and let's just flip it. Let's have that one at 6 o'clock of the first meeting, and then go back to 12 on the second meeting at noon.
The next one.
And the next one, yeah, of November, if that's meets the pleasure of the...
I'm going to be traveling, and I made my plans to get back in time to leave early on my visit and get back for that noon meeting, which I prefer the noon meetings, and I'd just as soon it not be changed.
Okay, any other comment? If we might have to come to a motion and a vote if we have different
I don't care about
opinions.
the time. Either way works for me.
I've made the plans for the trip. I'm going to be traveling on, returning on the 6th before I was elected back to this position, so it's the will of the Assembly. If they don't want to change it, we could have it at noon. And but don't we, Debbie, have to appoint a vice mayor by the first meeting in November?
Yes.
So that's another thing to consider as well.
Yeah, I mean, from my own perspective, I definitely prefer, as long as we have one noon meeting a month, I think I can change my schedule to accommodate that. Obviously, noon would be preferred, that's what I planned on, but I can accommodate the 6 p.m. if that works for everybody else. I know members trying to prefer that noon, but I can do it if need be.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
is there a reason that you're waiting to appoint, well, actually, we can talk about it now, or we can talk about it under council or assembly discussion items. Why are we waiting? And for me, part of this vice mayor selection is, according to the charter that I've been looking at over the last couple of weeks, it's really not the mayor's responsibility. It's up to the assembly to nominate somebody and vote on it.
I haven't read the charter recently, Member Mucci, but the way I understood it was appointment by the mayor with the approval of the assembly, so.
That's not how it reads.
Okay, well, it's not on today's agenda to take action on that.
Well, I brought it up under council discussion items, so I wanted to talk about it later.
Okay. So, back to the meeting. Are we going to not have it, when do we want the meeting? Can we have it at 6 p.m. on the 6th, or all those, there's no formal motion, so we can't really take action on it.
I thought I made a motion, but I didn't get a second, so.
Okay.
But then we had a
What was
discussion.
your motion, Kurt?
My motion was to just flip the meetings.
I'll second that.
There we go.
Okay, motion's been made by Member Wallader, seconded by Member Morrell to flip the meeting on November 6th to have it at 6 p.m., which is our evening time now, that we've decided on, and then the next meeting will be at noon on the 20th. We'll do a roll call vote on this.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Mark?
Yeah. Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Jeff? Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Nancy?
No.
Kurt?
Yes.
Okay, the meeting on November 6th will be at 6 p.m. It's voted, the vote was 6-1, with Member Strand opposing. So, Jeff, to answer your question, Member Mucci, I should say, I was just waiting to go through one meeting with the people seated on the assembly, and then if that's the way it's worded in the charter, then we need to look at it, clarify it, and if someone wants to make a motion at some point in the meeting,
Yep.
we could maybe just vote on it right then.
Sure.
Okay, that's it for Mayor's report. And now that brings us to the Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The library held the Manhattan Short Film Festival in late September. We had 50 people attend. We also hosted a special presentation in the library by an author from Juneau about the World War II Japanese internment and how it impacted Southeast Alaska communities. 29 people attended and stories were shared by residents. Curiosity Creates is the weekly after-school science, technology, engineering, art, and math program for elementary school kids at the library. Is going well, with 10 to 30 kids in attendance at every session. Oktoberfest is Saturday, October 28th in the community gym. We welcome everyone to join in the fun. We also have the Pumpkin Patch Plunge. Will be Monday on October 30th from 6 to 9. $10 entry for those that wish to catch a pumpkin while they swim. Afterwards, decorating and movie watching will happen in the gym. Parks and Rec wants to establish a Friends of Parks and Rec nonprofit group. They're looking for people who are interested in joining in shaping the future of the Parks and Rec department. We're encouraging people to put your name in. Talk to Chandra. Ira and Jesse winterized all the public bathrooms on the 10th of October. Due to some mild weather, we were able to keep them open slightly longer this year, but they will be now closed until May. Chief Swihart and Captain Hamilton met with other Southeast Alaska law enforcement executives as well as supervisors from various federal agencies on October 5th and 6th in an effort to reestablish a regional drug investigation task force. The group finalized a memorandum of understanding. Lieutenant Scott Erickson from Juneau PD was elected chairman of the board, and Juneau Police Department was elected to be the governing agency. It is hoped the task force will be operational before the end of the year. All police agencies between Yakutat and Ketchikan have expressed some level of commitment to the effort. Fire Department volunteers are running a Learn Not to Burn program in the elementary school during Fire Prevention Week, which is October 8th through the 14th. Volunteers visiting classrooms, kindergarten through 5th grade, in age-specific presentations from 10th through the 12th, reaching approximately less than 230 kids. Emergency Trauma Technician course will start October 29th and run through November 20th. The prerequisite course of basic life support for healthcare providers will be offered October 21st, and we are definitely looking for volunteers. Search and Rescue Branch has been mobilized several times in the last few months. People have been located prior to them hitting the field, but again, just for everyone, it's better for them to be called and not needed than needed and not called at all. The Power and Light remodel is, I think we're in the final stages of the building demolition. I saw them bringing supplies in and this morning, so far everything is going well. And Carl, Scott, am I telling the truth? Yep. The 350 generator replacement project is mostly complete. 2 new transformers have been installed and new primary wire is in place. The PFI switch project, we split into dirt work and electrical phases. As earlier you awarded the dirt work contract, officially titled the Power and Light retaining wall project, has now been awarded. The electrical work will be accomplished through a professional services contract with EPS of Juneau, who we have had on retainer at various times and does a lot of work for the borough. They will be visiting Petersburg on October 16th to review the project needs prior to issuing a proposal. On October 8th, the contractor that controls the operation of the Main Street streetlights failed, thanks to PFI for loaning the department a spare to keep the lights in operation while a replacement contactor is shipped. The local scrap metal and junk car roundup is going very well. As of October 5th, we have taken in over 400,000 pounds of metal from the community. The second one was a bit of a scare, but it sounds like it's been worked out. But most of our recycle on the west coast of the United States goes to China, and China was making a lot of noise about not accepting it anymore. So we were actually having to take a look and see what was going to happen with our recycle program. Sounds like that has been worked out for the short term, although I think at long term is going to be an interesting dynamic if it may affect the entire West Coast unless somebody else steps up. But for the meantime, we're in good shape. Is that what I heard, Carl?
Yes.
Yep. Surprised all of us. I didn't realize that our recycled stuff goes to China. Liz Cabrera, along with myself, Jody Tao, and Glorianne Rollin, participated with the Army Corps meetings last week regarding dredging of the South Harbor. They're back again, and they're getting ready to start the whole process of the feasibility study. It's all good news, and we'll start getting more and more information from them as they hit town and start doing the work. PUDC and the Chamber of Commerce hosted writers Fran Golden and David earlier this summer. They really enjoyed their time in Petersburg, especially their tour with Tonga's kayak adventures and conversations with Viking travel owners. David recently published an article in the Miami Herald about his time in Alaska. According to the Alaska Travel and Tourism Association, the story was read by 9 million viewers, and it had an estimated return on investment value of $447,000. This is the second story he has published in the Miami Herald about Petersburg. Staff in Public Works did some exploratory digging at Pump Station 7 to verify the piping connections available. The staff is still hoping to accomplish the Pump Station 7 force main installation prior to winter. Public Works also worked on removing the old fencing and a tree at the back of the police department parking lot, which will be our new snow dump for that area. We'll be working on digging a Christmas tree stand in front of the municipal building soon as we move our community Christmas tree to right outside our new remodeled building. And we also helped the removal of the Our Town mural for the Arts Council so that it can go through its refurbishment process. Snowplow preparations are complete for the winter, and that is it, unless there's questions.
Any questions of the manager on his report? Member Wallerter?
I just certainly hope that that David got the right Petersburg and not St. Petersburg, Florida. So maybe we'll see some benefit from that.
Any other questions of the manager on his report? Okay, seeing none. That moves us to unfinished business. And the first item there is ordinance 2017-13, an ordinance providing for repeal of Chapter 3.16 of the Code of the former city of Petersburg, now Service Area 1. I'd entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 2017-13 in its second reading.
So moved.
Or second?
Second.
Motion by Member Mucci, seconded by Member Morrell. Discussion? And basically, for the people listening, this is just a bookkeeping thing, the way I understand it, isn't it, Debbie? I mean,
Yes.
just getting rid of the IT person in the position?
Correct.
Yeah. So, with no discussion, clerk call the roll.
Jeff?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, it passes unanimously. Ordinance 2017-13, that's in its second reading. The next ordinance might take a little longer. Would people like to take a 5-minute break before we start this, or should we just dive into it?
Let's take 5. Get it done.
Okay, that work? Take 5?
Yeah, is that all right?
Yeah, sounds good. We'll reconvene at 6:50. Ish.
I see no answer for it myself.
Yeah, okay, we're going to reconvene the meeting at 6:49, and the next item on the agenda is ordinance 2017-14. This is an ordinance providing for Chapter 3.08 of the Municipal Code entitled Assembly and Mayor, updating current language to reflect borough incorporation. I'd entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance in its second reading.
So move.
Second.
Motion been made by Member Walhooter, seconded by Member Stanton Gregor to approve ordinance 2017-14 in its second reading. Discussion. Member Strand.
Is this the one with the quorum issue?
Yes, it's in, and I'm not sure exactly what section it is, but
090, I believe. Oh, wait, maybe, let me look, sorry.
There's kind of two issues here. One's the quorum and then one's disclosure.
Quorum is 080.
right.
Financial interest is 090.
Okay, so if anybody wants to change this as it's passed in its first reading as presented, and there's also been one addition, and that was the personal financial interest to this ordinance since the first reading. So that's something we should discuss as well. But Member Strand?
I'm going to be amending this.
Okay, so
Is now the time?
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, I move to remove all wording pertaining to to allowing assembly members participating by teleconference to be counted toward establishing a quorum. That means we're going to leave the quorum in present at 4.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Motion. Motion's been made by Member Strand, seconded by Member Walhooter to remove the language that would allow a quorum to be formed by people that aren't present in the assembly chambers. Currently, it's 4, and this ordinance says it wants to change it to 2. It says in Section 3.080, quorum and voting requirements, Section C, all assembly members and the mayor should make reasonable effort to be physically present for every meeting. A minimum of 2 assembly members must be physically present at the meeting for the purpose of determining a quorum. So is that what you'd like to strike?
Yep.
Discussion? Okay.
2 things. One I've spoke of already. I think it's important for 4 of us here at the dais. As we have members here in the community today, I think it's important that if there's something you want to discuss with us, either before or after or on break in the meeting, it's important for the public trust to have us here. Member Strand touched on the fact that if only 2 of us were here and 2 are calling in, if a call was dropped, suddenly there's no quorum, the whole meeting is lost. I thought it was a very valid point. But most important to me is really is public trust, and I think this maintains that. Also, Debbie, Clerk Thompson, I had a question for you to clarify. One of my concerns was regarding how this would impact hospital board and/or planning and zoning, and maybe it's for people listening at home who heard this last week. Could you follow up on that for me, please?
Absolutely. So I found, at least for the hospital board, this does not apply to planning and zoning.
Okay.
And if they want to look at changing their quorum requirements, we'll do it separately. But for the hospital board, they have their own bylaws, and it looks like as if they just change their bylaws to allow teleconferencing members to be counted toward the quorum, that will be good enough. However, if the assembly down the line at some point would like to change that and make it that they have to have 4 physically present for a quorum, we could do that just by amending the code.
So to clarify, we don't need to touch on that in any way, shape, or form here.
Correct, we do not.
Thanks.
Any other discussion on the amendment, which would remove section C?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Eric?
Yes, this is Eric. Just wanted to, was wondering if this would affect planning and zoning's quorum meeting abilities as well.
Debbie just spoke to that, and Debbie, could you refresh?
It will leave the quorum requirements for planning and zoning to be 4 physically present.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions on the amendment? One thing I would, part of this, section C, is all assembly members and the mayor should make reasonable effort to be physically present for every meeting. That would be removed as well if we vote to remove this whole section. And I was talking with the clerk earlier and trying to think back of where I found this, and it was actually in the charter, vacancies and forfeiture of office. If one of the reasons for removal of office, if you fail to attend 3 regular meetings of the assembly per calendar year without being excused by the assembly. So I guess making a reasonable effort to be physically present, you actually have to be physically present or be excused. So I don't know, this is one of those things Debbie and I talked about today. Do we want to change the charter? And that takes a vote of the public. So, Jay?
I mean, I don't know if it's striking out. I'm good with the amendment as it is, but it strikes me as a more linear way to do this would be just changing the word. A minimum of 4 assembly members must be physically present at the meeting for the purposes of determining a quorum, and leaving the rest seems reasonable. But if the assembly wants to keep it the way it is and strike the whole thing, I'm fine with that too, I guess.
I like the idea of just changing it to 4 as well.
Okay, so is the maker of the amendment in favor of that?
I'm amenable to that. Just so there's
And because I seconded it, I'll second.
Okay, so the amendment is going to read just
changing the word from 2 to 4.
Exactly, under section C of 3.08080.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So, then no more discussion. Clerk, call the roll on the amendment.
Eric?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes. So the amendment passes unanimously, so that will be changed from 2 to 4. We still have to have 4 to make a quorum. Is there any other amendments to the ordinance? Just have a note here. Let me, I can't. Bear with me, please. One thing that's also in this, and I'd have to look back to find the section, is it was brought up by the clerk and our attorney to change, is it in this ordinance, Debbie, am I right, to change the deadline for having the meeting agenda presented from
It is in this ordinance,
Friday?
yes. Mm-hmm.
I can't make a motion to change that, but I think it would be...
What was that, Mark?
Sorry. Mr. Mayor, as it is.
Well, we're both kind of new to this, so bear with me here.
Fair enough.
It's under 3.08.120.
Okay, so let's look at that for a minute. And I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention, and I think if it did change to Friday instead of Thursday for the agenda to have to be presented to the public, it doesn't give you any time, business days to discuss it, so.
Mr. Mayor, is it currently Thursday when we have to have it in by noon?
I believe it is.
Then I would make a motion that we just leave it there.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion's been made to amend this ordinance to, or to change the wording from Thursday back and just leave it, or Friday, leave it at Thursday. Any discussion on that amendment?
Did we second? I'll second.
Oh,
We have a second.
No,
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the Thursday one. It gives me more time to kind of look at things. If I get it on Friday, if I get it in the afternoon, I get kind of jammed up, and Thursday works a little better for me.
all right. Jay?
That's one other thing too. I think it's good gives the public more time to digest it, call us, ask questions about it, give us their 2 cents on it. So yeah, Thursday makes sense to me.
And doesn't state law say 2 business days?
I believe it's 72 hours. You have to advertise for a regular meeting for things to be, action items to be on the agenda. So if it did come out at noon on Friday and the meeting was noon on Monday,
And it doesn't specify business days?
no, it's just 70, it's hours, I believe. And I agree with the other comments here. I think it's gives people more time. It gives them a whole business day to digest the agenda and bring things forward to assembly members that they could bring it to the clerk. So the amendment is to take Thursday out and leave Friday in. And if you read this,
Take
it's...
Friday out, leave Thursday?
Yes.
Yeah. It says Thursday in one place, and here it says Friday in another, so that's what I was reading. Okay, clerk call the roll on this amendment.
Jay?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that keeps the language the same, 3.0810 to Thursday for the deadline to have the assembly meeting packet available. Any other amendments to the ordinance 17-14? Clerk call the roll on the ordinance as amended.
Mr. Mayor?
Is there discussion?
Actually, do you want someone to make a motion about the financial interest that was added in?
Yes, we should address that as well, and we talked about that. That was added between the first and second reading, so technically, Debbie, do you want to explain it?
Sure. So this personal financial interest is in the code right now, in Title I. It's on the ordinance that tells us how to handle ordinances, and it's under the part where it talks about voting. But it doesn't apply only to ordinances. It would apply to bid awards or, many business items that you guys might vote on. If anyone on the assembly has a personal financial interest in something, they're just supposed to say so, and then the assembly votes as to whether that member can participate in whatever it is they're voting on at the time. So because we look for it, we search for it, every time we know it somewhere, where is that again? The attorney and I just thought it would be prudent to go ahead and put it in the assembly and mayor ordinance, where that's where we go to look for it when we're trying to find it. So we threw it in there, thinking that it's kind of a technical move, but really, you guys should make the change, not us.
So what we need is an amendment to the ordinance to add that language.
So move.
Second.
A motion's been made by Member Walhooter, seconded by Member Strand to add the, personal finance, what's it called, Debbie?
Personal financial interest.
Okay, to this ordinance. Jay?
So to clarify, Clerk Thompson, this is more or less cleaning up something that's in other areas of code, but putting it directly under mayor and assembly.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion on that amendment? Clerk call the roll. Thanks for bringing that up, though, Debbie.
You bet. Brandy?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that amendment passes unanimously. Is there any discussion on the ordinance as amended? Seeing none, will clerk call the roll?
Jeff?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the ordinance 17-14, it passes unanimously as amended. And that brings us to the next item on the agenda. And that is 17-262, approval of Manager Giesbrecht's 2016-17 performance evaluation and consideration of a contract extension proposal. I'd entertain a motion to approve that.
So move.
Second.
Motion's been made by Member Strand, seconded by Member Walhuter, I believe, to approve this. Discussion.
See, so a quick point of clarification. This is both all at once, approving the evaluation and the proposal, all in the same thing?
It could be made either way, I would imagine. I think it's,
I'm fine with it as is. I was curious more than anything.
actually, this is a proposal by the manager, so it's a little different than it's happened in the past. When I was on the assembly, we went through the evaluation process, and from talking with the clerk today, the same protocol was used. You used the evaluations and were summarized by the clerk, and then the mayor and one person from the assembly met with the manager and discussed the evaluation. Is that how it took place this year, Bill, Debbie?
That's correct.
Generally, what happened before, if I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the assembly made a recommendation for the compensation changes or to the manager's contract. But so this is just a proposal what the manager would like to,
Correct.
See from the assembly.
So maybe you would want to make a motion to approve the evaluation separately from the proposal. Just
There
a
are two
suggestion.
different items, so that's correct.
Yeah.
So could we restate the motion?
Or didn't they need to withdraw the motion first?
Withdraw the motion?
I've never made it.
Who made the motion?
Nancy made the motion.
To
withdraw this and do them separately. Approve the manager's evaluation, and then we'll talk about the contract extension proposal. There's two separate things here. Nancy, would you withdraw your motion?
I don't remember making the motion, but I will.
Well, Kurt seconded it.
Can you, I think Member Strand made the motion and Member Walhuter seconded it. I'm kind of losing.
That is what I wrote down, but
So we need them to retract the motion in the second.
No, I'll also move that we separate them.
Okay.
And I'll retract my second and then second the new motion.
So we do need a parliamentarian. Kind of rusty. So motion's been made to approve Manager Giesbrecht's evaluation, and there's been a motion made by Member Strand, seconded by Member Walhuter. Discussion on the evaluation, if any.
I'll go for it.
Okay.
Those of you who've read the evaluation, it speaks for itself. Steve's gotten great remarks. What I'd just like to do, though, is recognize the department heads for taking the time out of their busy schedules to give Steve good constructive feedback that he can build on for the future. So thank you for that.
Any other discussions on the manager's performance evaluation? Mr. Mookie?
Yeah, I wasn't part of the evaluation, but I read this thoroughly, talked to a few department heads, but importantly to me is that I was able to talk to a lot of people around the community who were very happy with Steve's work and stressed to me how important he is to this community, especially when we're looking at times of diminished revenues coming in, and we're going to be asking him to do recommend to us some probably uncomfortable budget scenarios here this next spring, and I need somebody who knows what he's doing to help me out. So I'm in support of this evaluation.
Any other comments? Member Strand?
I wholeheartedly support the veracity of this evaluation and think we should approve it and, in addition, retain Steve for following his suggestions.
Okay, any other discussion on the evaluation?
Sure, yes.
Okay, Eric?
Yeah, I'm in full support of Steve and our current administration. I trust that he has the best interest of our community in mind and feel he has proven himself throughout his prior years of service. Just as John Hogue said, he's he has a lot of skills that our community needs during these times of fiscal depression, and it'd be good to be able to have him at our helm. And I just wanted to express my support for Steve.
Okay, any other discussion on the evaluation part? Seeing none, I'd like the clerk to call the roll for approval of Manager Giesbeck's performance evaluation.
Eric?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, the performance evaluation presented to us for Manager Giesbeck was passed unanimously. Now I'll entertain a motion to extend Manager Giesbeck's contract.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to extend Manager Giesbrecht's contract as proposed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion been made by Member Stanton Gregor, seconded by Member Strand, to approve the proposal presented to the Assembly by Manager Giesbrecht. Is there discussion?
I have a question. Is that common for, with it being a year out or over a year out to sign a new contract at this point? Is that...
Can anybody else answer that? I could give my answer.
I can,
This is Debbie.
From my point of view, it's a security thing for sure. He probably would feel like he needs to start looking for another job pretty soon. It takes a while to find a city manager position that you probably want to take. That's just my take on it.
Member Walter, you...
And my 2 cents worth is that we are going to be demanding quite a bit from him here this coming winter. And if he knows that he has some skin in the game for more than just 1 year, I think that we will get more performance out of him. So don't think you're going to get off easy, Steve. At least not from me.
Don't take it that way.
Member Strand?
Additionally, in addition to what Kurt said, he's got 4 years of experience watching income drop. So I think that it would be fools to let him go, to get rid of him.
Okay, Member Gregor?
Sure. Something for people listening at home talking about giving us the borough manager a raise. It's a 4% raise. I want to be clear to the public because that's not new money. That's been budgeted in. Something we planned on earlier in the year. It's something we just created out of thin air. This is a raise that Steve has deserved, as evidenced by all of his evaluation being either meets job standard, exceeds, or is outstanding. He hit all 3 of those marks, and as Member Mucci commented on before, his highest marks were in fiscal responsibility. That's again from us as an assembly and department heads. And as several members have mentioned, in this very challenging financial time, we need a manager who is strong in fiscal responsibility, and he's earned those high marks because he's earned them, because that's his top priority. We've given him a mandate: save this community money and be efficient. Just want to go on record publicly. It's said on here, you deserve every penny of it, Steve, and I'll definitely be voting for this, because you will have to earn every penny of it, and it won't be easy. So thank you, sir.
Any other comments? Or I'd like to just read what the proposal was to the Assembly from the manager, so people listening, know what we're talking about. I think that'd be maybe clarify some things.
Good idea.
It says, I would like the Assembly to consider the following. First, a 5-year renewal of my contract to November 2023. Increase in car allowance to $250 a month from $100 a month. Salary increase to $121,000 with no further increases for the life of the extended contract. This is approximately a 4% increase over almost a 9-year period. The last 3 years plus the 1 year left on my existing contract and the additional 5. Increase of the borough's match to 1.5 to 1 for the ICMA 457 plan. An example, if the manager contributes $1, the borough contributes $1.50, and that's up to a maximum of 3% of his salary. At the above salary, the borough's match would max out at $5,445 a year, up from $3,495 a year now, an increase of $1,950 a year if I contribute the max of 3%. So that is what we're voting on, just for people that don't have it in print in front of them. Any other comments?
I have a couple of questions, actually. Is that the increase in your percentage that's being matched, does that correlate with the rest of the borough employees?
Steve, would you want to answer that, or?
I can.
Or can you? I mean, that,
Sure.
was that question presented to
The answer is no.
Whomever has the answer.
To the mayor. No, currently it's a one-to-one match for all other employees. Try to say this right, for Tier 4 employees that we provide this to. Tier 1, 2, and 3, we do not provide this to any employees because it's a state retirement that is, it's a pension. Tier 4 employees, it's not a pension at all. It's basically a 401k plan. So this would be different than what we're currently providing other Tier 4 employees.
Does that answer that question? You have any other questions?
So, and what exactly is your car allowance used for?
Basically anything and everything that involves a vehicle to need to go out and go meet with a borough staff member, go meet with a citizen, drive out the road, whatever the need be. I don't use a borough pool car for that. I use my own vehicle. And that was an arrangement when I was hired that, I had to take care of that myself.
I'd like to comment or ask a question. I don't see it in the agenda today, but in your contract, or in the manager's contract, is it still the same severance plan that we had? I mean, if you're relieved or terminated without cause, you get a year's salary? Is that
correct?
For this, and then if you're terminated with cause, there's no benefit.
Correct.
No.
If I'm terminated for, there's a list. I'm a criminal.
Right.
Steal thing, whatever the thing. Then there's no severance. Thank you. If I'm an at-will employee, which means that somebody can choose to not renew my contract and send me on my way, and there's no, I don't get the luxury of performance discipline plans or anything like that. You just have to wave at me and say goodbye. So the severance is part of that's the key issue to making sure that I've got some security, that if somebody changes directions and wants somebody else in here, then I've got time to look for a job. So.
Correct. So I just wanted to make sure that was still the same. I assumed it was, which asking for a 5-year extension of the contract would seems a little long to me, but that's not going to keep me from voting for this. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, I agree. 5 years seems long to me, considering our terms are only 2 to 3 years, but.
The only way that could be changed in this proposal that we're talking about would be for someone to make a motion to change it, and there'd have to be a second and discussion and a vote. So, and I can't make a motion, so just to get you up to speed on the parliamentary procedures. I think I got that one right.
Correct.
So, any other discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Eric?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You will be earning it.
Okay, let's stay on track here, folks. We're under unfinished business, and the next item is D, 17-268, Petersburg Municipal Power and Light Management. We've been asked to come up with a plan for a job description and a salary range to recruit if that's the position of the assembly, a new power and light superintendent. So I don't see, if someone needs to make a motion to get this on the floor. And I'm not sure how to do that, or what the motion would be.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should just defer this until we've had it clarified. I don't know what to move.
Well, maybe,
Got an idea here.
just a second. Go ahead. Maybe we could just make a motion to, I don't know if you'd appoint a couple people from the assembly, or if the assembly, the mayor, or somebody to visit with the manager to come up with some proposal, something to present to us. I know there is a proposal in here already, which is kind of controversial right now, and go ahead, Jason. It looks like you got an idea.
I'll get it started. We'll see where it plays out.
Okay.
All right. I would move that we begin the recruitment for power light superintendent following with the criteria of the proposed superintendent job description, or to give the borough manager to begin recruitment following that job description. Does that work, Debbie?
Yes,
It's
so,
sloppy, but that's a motion, but I think we get it started. Maybe, Deb, you could summarize what you wrote down, Debbie, and
well, if I understood it correctly, it was to begin recruitment with the proposed superintendent job description. So to me, this is actually going to approve the job description first. Maybe we should take it one chunk at a time.
that would be
Talk
a little
about the
bit
job
less
description,
confusing.
and then talk about the salary range, and
Okay, so the motion is to recruit for a power and light superintendent with the proposed electrical superintendent job description.
Yes.
Second. I mean, it's just to get it on the table for discussion, and the motion was made in the positive, so.
Did somebody second that? I'll second that, just so we can have the conversation.
That's technically the right way to do it, I guess. The motion's been made to recruit for a power and light superintendent using the proposed superintendent job description. And for those listening, you could go online and find it on the agenda packet. But it's lengthy, so a couple pages. So, discussion.
I personally think that there needs to be more experience and knowledge of the electrical trade in this one. That being my trade, I would, well, actually, can I ask a question? Or is that later?
Well,
Because I would like to know how much,
if you want to change this technically, you should make a motion to add
well, we're
Libby.
just discussing this at this point, right?
yes.
But
Yeah.
I would like to know from Scott how many decisions he makes daily that's based on his knowledge and experience of the trade. Because I've talked to both the Wrangell and Michigan superintendent, and they said that it's prudent to have electrical knowledge and
Well, definitely,
experience.
you should have, the day-to-day business of, hooking up people's power and, troubleshooting. But definitely, you need some experience. I don't know the number of years you need, but you definitely need some time on the day end of it. As far as I can tell you a number of years what you need, but it takes time to do it, and then everywhere else your codes and everything else is handled different, so it takes time to learn that.
Right, I agree. Okay, I was just trying to clarify.
I mean, if you, any other discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor, I think this is also just an exercise in getting it going, because I think once we see the applications roll in, we'll see what sort of qualifications are available to us, and I think then we can probably make the right decision by what we'll have probably gathered to what our needs are at the time. So, we don't have to accept just any, application. So, and yeah, maybe it's not be completely clear, but maybe it'll be more clear once we find out who's, interested in the position.
But,
Hold on, sir.
usually there comes up something every day that you have to know something about, you know what I'm saying? Something comes up quite often.
Right, and in the qualifications in this one, it doesn't really specify that need.
I think right now we're making a motion to use this proposed job description to advertise.
Or amend it.
Or amend it. And if we're going to have other wording in it requiring 5 years, 7 years of journeyman or whatever we think the wording should be, we need to make a motion to amend this.
Yes.
That's my feeling. Otherwise, we're going to vote to send this out just as it's proposed. And if you look at the other examples in our packet, from Wrangell, Sitka, they have some kind of qualifications with credentials with experience in the electrical field.
Right.
And then this does not specify that.
So I would like to move to amend it to have specifications that require electrical knowledge.
So you're talking about, but was that you, Eric?
No, that's
That was your
feedback.
echo.
Oh, feedback. That's me again.
Set your phone off there.
So what we need to do is amend the qualifications part of it to add what you feel comfortable with. I mean, whatever you have to.
I would say
be
that 6
specific.
to 8 years journey level experience, which is the equivalent of what's needed to be an electrical administrator.
Okay, so there's been a motion to amend this job description to include under qualifications 8 years of journeyman,
6 to 8 years.
6 to 8 years of journeyman experience. Is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second that, and then we'll also add something else after that.
Okay, so there's motion's been made by Member Wall, seconded by Member Walhooter to add 6 to 8 years journeyman experience under the qualifications in this job description for advertising for a power and light superintendent. Discussion on that amendment to this proposal. Mr. Mucci.
Mr. Mayor?
Hang on one second, Eric.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Eric. Okay, go ahead, Eric. Jeff gave you the floor.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, well, you know, as I see it right here, there's no specific education necessary for Wrangell's electrical superintendent. It looks like they asked for they graduate high school. And also, like it was stated in the paper a number of months ago, Andrew Donato, the Ketchikan electrical superintendent, said that one doesn't need an electrical degree as much as they need to know how to manage people. And for that, I don't feel that they need to have 6 to 8 years of journeyman electrical experience.
Okay, so
With that,
hold on, Brandy. Brandy, we're going to get recognized by the chair, and you'll have your turn. We need to get back on track here. Jeff?
Sure. That's better than Mucci. That's great.
Member Mucci, you want me to just, okay.
Jeff's fine.
Okay.
What does it mean when you're a journeyman electrician? What does that mean?
Well, it means you served an official apprenticeship, and after you've done with your apprenticeship, then you start your journeyman time. So you serve your apprenticeship, which here it's like 4 years
Yep.
in the state of Alaska, and then once you do that, you journey out, and then that's when your time starts, you know, after that.
Okay. Thank you.
So it'd be actually, 5 years apprentice time, and then 8 years after that, or 6.
Yep.
So that would, Scott, that would give you roughly 13 years of experience in the electrical field.
Starting as an apprentice.
As an apprentice, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I,
Yes.
just a comment, it's,
Yeah.
if you start using language like apprentice and journeyman, then you are limiting it to probably, union membership, or, in other words, some states don't do the same things as Alaska does. It's entirely up to you. I mean, you might be better off saying number of years of experience so you don't exclude candidates from some other place. But, you know what I'm saying is, if you want 10 years of experience, then say 10 years of experience. If you start saying you want journeyman experience, now you're specifically talking about someone that's an IBEW union environment or a certified person. Not necessarily is done the same way in every state. Example, we didn't have journeyman linemen in Texas. You had people that had worked for many years and were trained on the job. Different world. We may not want that. I mean, somebody may not want that. You may want specifically that they've held that journeyman, ticket, so to speak. Just clarifying that with the assembly. Make sure, if you want to go down that route, that it starts to say, okay, we're not going to take people from certain places.
Question for the manager on what you just talked on. If we were to advertise with those, with that language in there, 68 years journeyman experience, and we sent that out in a job description, if someone was hired into a leader, manager, department head, would they be union or would they be, that doesn't...
No, once they're, that's not a union position.
Okay,
I'm just saying,
no,
I'm sorry, I misspoke in that fact. What I was speaking to is not every state does the Pacific Northwest, California, Alaska, all of that does the journeyman, apprentice. You get into some places, just don't do that. It's kind of that, it's a different training world. I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm just saying it is different. The Assembly may want to keep it to, like we use the language here, the journeyman experience. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just pointing out that it is different. Your option could be to say the number of years, and then you exclude no one.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. Did you defer? I can defer.
Brandy?
That's good. I just think that it needs to be stated that there needs to be a certain number of years required because, I have several years of experience and I can tell you I don't know anything. So you really have to have a certain number of years to be in the trade to actually know to have the knowledge required. So, if you want to put a year amount or an equivalent, that's fine. But
Okay.
I think that it should be stated in there.
Okay, so you would like to keep the motion 68 years journeyman experience.
It doesn't have to be journeyman. It can be...
But that was how the motion was made. And how it was said.
I was just going to say, or equivalent
Okay.
could be added. And so then, therefore, if it's 10 years of experience somewhere that doesn't require a journeyman level certificate and lineman work, then that would qualify.
Okay, so you want to add that to your amendment, 68
Yes.
years are equivalent. Does the second of the motion agree to that? And does everybody
agree.
clear on what we're discussing? Eric, do you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, just wanted to make sure it was changed. So any other discussion on that amendment to this? Okay.
I'd like to kind of echo Member Castro's thoughts on the matter. It's pretty scattershot what people require for electrical utility in terms of requirements. As Member Castro mentioned, high school diploma plus equivalent experience for Wrangell, talking about Ketchikan managerial skills. Aberdeen, Maryland required no electrical experience but previous utility experience. Point being, it's scattershot. If I had my way, I'd be talking with Carl Hagerman about him filling his position, but since he withdrew his name for it, the best I can hope for is I like leaving a really broad spectrum that we can work for, from drawing from a whole bunch of different talent pools, and I prefer the wording as it is right now to give us more options. My 2 cents.
Okay, any other comments on the amendment? Mr. Jeff?
So, Jay, just to be clear, you're supportive of the amendment?
No,
Okay.
I'm not. I like the wording as it is right there.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying, Member Michi.
That's fine.
Okay, any other discussion? What we're voting on is to amend the proposed job description for power and light superintendent to add 6 to 8 years journeyman experience or equivalent. Am I correct on stating that, Debbie?
Correct.
Okay. Clerk, call the roll.
Eric?
No.
Jay?
No.
Kurt?
No.
Brandy?
Yes.
Nancy?
No.
Mark? Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, the amendment fails with the 3-4 vote with members Marole, Mucci, and Mayor Jensen opposed. Now that brings us back to the main motion to use the proposed electrical superintendent job description to advertise for a power and light superintendent. Any discussion or amendments? Clerk, call the roll.
Brandy?
No.
Eric? Jay?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
No.
Jeff?
No.
Okay, the motion passes 4-3 with the same dissenting votes from Moreau, Mucci, and Jensen. And so we have voted to use the proposed electrical superintendent's job description for advertising for power and light position. So that brings us to the next section, which is a salary range. And do we want to discuss the budget, how we're going to budget for it at the same time, or just a salary range? We'll entertain a motion however a member wants to present it.
Through the mayor, I'll need, to be able to recruit, I need answers to both of those questions. So I need, from at least the standpoint
Correct,
of...
whether we're going to address it one at a time or...
Yes, sir.
That's however it gets presented in a motion. Either way, we can discuss it. So I entertain a motion to present the salary range and how we're going to make a supplemental budget to include recruitment and relocation costs. That's what we need, is basically how much we're going to spend on recruitment and relocation costs, Steve, and the salary range. We want to take a 5-minute break for people to come up with a number to make a motion, or?
Sure.
Okay, we'll reconvene at 7:40. I really need to go to the bathroom this time.
Where is the salary range?
How much is this based on DOE?
Would you please take their places?
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Jeff?
Could we maybe get some help from the city manager or something? 'Cause I don't really have a number to put out there for a salary or what we're doing, but I don't know the best way to come up with that.
Okay, maybe, Steve, could you help us? What was the proposed salary going to be for Carl's position if he was to take over Power and Light? And then what was Joe Nelson making? Would that give us a range?
I can potentially. Joe Nelson was making just shy of $103,000 when he retired. Joe always said that if we ever went to replace him, we'd have to pay a lot more, but I think he was referring primarily to the fact that he had an electrical engineering degree. I think, I can't remember what I wrote up Carl for, but it was a little bit more than that, 3,000 or 4,000 more than that, but that was what I had suggested for the utility director position, which is not on the table. I put a possible salary range of $90,000 to $130,000. And I'll tell you, folks, it is all over the board. I tried to look at what people are paid in Southeast, went out to the Northwest Pacific Public Power Association website, the American Public Power Association website, and looked for, jobs that kind of fit. And it's all over the board. It's everything from, mid 150, 160 to you get into the South and the salaries drop and it's 85 to 95. So that's a very broad range. We're budgeted currently for about 103,000. And again, I put in the range. I put the possible salary range 90 to 130K. I don't know what we're going to find. But that's how I came up with that number.
I guess we have to advertise to find out how much interest there is. And then on the other part of it, Jeff, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And I can't remember what your numbers were, but you put numbers out there for recruitment and relocation costs.
Yeah. I'll go through each of them if that's acceptable to the Assembly.
Would that give you a better idea, Mr. Jeff?
Advertising, about $6,500. The big expense there is the two big trade magazines, which is the American Public Power Association and the Northwest Pacific Power Association. They both have websites that you can advertise jobs for in the field itself. So majority of people who see those jobs are going to be actually working in the trade. We'll run an ad in the probably Juneau, Anchorage papers, the Alaska Job Bank. We'll run it here in Petersburg and possibly Sitka, I'm not sure. And when Debbie ran the numbers, it's about $6,500. It'll take about 30 to 45 days after you run the ads to start kind of getting throughput in. We budgeted $7,000 for recruitment trips. Now what that is saying that's based on 3 finalists, and I'll get into that process that I'd like to use. Assuming that every one of them has got a significant other, and that we're going to bring all 6 of them here to town, and for final interviews here in town. Again, clearly it's a bit of guesswork because our finalist candidates could be single and come by themselves. I mean, so again, $7,000 for recruitment trips. We'd try to use air miles where we can. Community meetings, we put in $1,000. That might be a little bit light, but that's basically kind of like we did with the police department when we recruited the chief, where we have a public reception, allows the public to come in and meet the candidates, allows the assembly to, if the assembly is not all involved in the recruitment process directly, allows the assembly and staff to meet them. And it's an interesting way to see how they react to the community. We're a small town. This is not a position that sits at a desk all the time. We expect them to interact with the public, so having those kind of public receptions is helpful. And then relocation, I put $25,000 in there. That's basically, if we like them, we say we want to offer them a job, we come to agreements on contract, we're going to probably have to pay some relocation to get them here. And again, that's a really flexible number because it could be somebody coming from here when it's, okay, we don't have any relocation. It could be somebody from Juneau. It could be somebody coming from Atlanta, Georgia, and with a household of, 4 kids, and it gets a little. My recommendation in that area is you put a cap on it. You say we'll pay up to in relocation reimbursed upon actual receipts, not. We're not just going to give you $25,000. The recruiting process itself, what I wanted to do, or it's effective in something like this, is you run the ads, you collect resumes, you put a resume screening group together. I highly recommend if there's assembly members interested to be involved in that. We'll use some of the Power and Light folks for that as well. And it's basically to make, it's kind of the BS test. Does this resume look like this person has the right qualifications? And you want a lot of different eyes to look at that. I mean, it's everything from Debbie to, the kind of skill sets that, I think are real important to the electrical stuff. You then do screening interviews on the telephone. We'll try to do Skype or FaceTime, as that's helpful. Sometimes that's not possible, but you want 8 to, maybe maximum of 10, but kind of in that range of people that you're going to do telephone interviews with. And from that group, you want to pull your finalists. I say up to 3. I don't think bringing any more than that here is, you're spending too much money at that point, but really no less than 2. I mean, you kind of want that, if you end up with 3 that are just that close, then you bring 3, 2 is fine too. But again, it's that concept of, get them here. We would encourage them to bring their significant other with them. We know that that's a challenge, is we want everybody to be happy. You don't want to bring them to town and have somebody not want to move or not want to live here. And generally, we're going to run into the issue that goes into the relocation with having to make a house hunting trip, after the hiring type process. So, I like to do a board interview when they come to town. So again, maybe some of the same people that screen the resumes, but I encourage, this has been a controversial issue, so it wouldn't be a bad thing for a couple of assembly members to be involved in that process. we interview them here in town in a board format. Then I interview them one-on-one, and then we all get back together in a room and we hash it out, start talking about who we liked, who we didn't like, as we did with Kelly. You know,
Well, this is similar to the same process we use when we advertise for your position.
Not yet, and we're not using a consultant, an outside consultant, but it is, the concept is get the more people involved, the better up to a point. Lots of different points of view, and then you get everybody back together at the end and you sit around and talk about it and say, okay, you know, these are strengths and weaknesses, and we end up kind of ratcheting it down to make an offer. We don't have to decide on that exact process tonight. I mean, that can come. My problem is I kind of haven't needed an idea on the budget we have not done a supplemental budget on this. I can start getting the ads put together and getting them out with an action by the assembly, and then we'll come back to you with a supplemental budget when we know how much we're actually going to spend. And also the salary range, because that's a huge part of the recruitment. I can put in, depending upon qualifications, the reality is most really good candidates are going to have some idea before they come to an island in southeast Alaska. They're going to want to know, are we paying enough to get them here?
Right. So basically what you're looking for now is a salary range, and then...
Are my recruitment numbers close enough for you? I don't know that I could get them much closer than this.
Well, it's a figure that we can work with. Jeff, does that make sense to you? Yep.
Do you need a motion or something?
We need a motion, again, to come up with a salary range. And then the supplemental budget, excuse me, Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead.
Supplemental budget is something that, I mean, we need to approve at least the advertising part.
Well,
or not.
Sorry. The supplemental budget is the formal language that Jody will bring forward to the Assembly at some point. What I need is a nice warm and fuzzy feeling that the Assembly has looked at this advertising budget and says, see, that looks good enough, go ahead. Power and Light has the money. That's where this will come from. Mm-hmm. So I'm not worried about it from that perspective. But Jody will need a formal document. So this will come back to you in the form of an ordinance that you'll have 3 readings. But for me to at least start the advertising piece of it, I've got to have some idea that the Assembly's okay that, you know, basically because we'll spend that really fast. You start running the ads, it's gone. And I need to know that the Assembly's okay with us spending the money, or you want it to cost less, and then you got to tell me where you want to cut.
So in this process this evening,
Excuse me.
without going through 3 readings of the supplemental budget, can we give you permission to spend $6,500 in that?
Yes.
Okay.
That's within my spending authority.
$30,000 limit.
Correct.
Right, okay. All right. Jeff, is that?
That's fine.
Okay.
So we need a motion to kind of...
To give a salary range out
Yep.
there and then give the manager permission to advertise. I believe that's where we're at, right?
Yes, sir.
So we need a motion on this.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we advertise for this position with the salary range of $90,000 to $110,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the manager recommended 103, but 110, whatever, and then we just get the advertising out.
Second.
So is there a second to the motion? Okay. Motion's been made by Member Mucci, seconded by Member Stanton Gregor to approve advertising for Power and Light position with a salary range from $90,000 to $110,000. Discussion.
Seems like we had the discussion before we got into it, but
Seems like we did. Well, we were just asking for numbers for...
Thank you, Steve, for the clarifications. I wouldn't be joking.
Yeah, no one came forward with a motion with a salary range, so, and without having the Steve's printed out version in front of me, I asked, so. Anyway, discussion. Clerk, call the roll.
Brandy?
Yes.
Eric had to get off the line. I apologize for using my cell during the meeting, but he was texting me to tell me he had to hang up, so he's no longer there.
We would have never known if you had your phone.
Jay?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, since Member Casper's off the phone, it passes unanimously with a 6-0 vote to advertise the position with the salary range from $90,000 to $110,000.
Mr. Mayor, I'm a little troubled on that first amendment that we just made. Now, because I'm on the winning side there, I I'm wondering if we're being too restrictive when we put in there 5 to 7 years of staff supervision and leadership. You know, are we going to restrict, our job pool from, like, maybe some people that are qualified in town?
Well, let me get a clarification on if we can address this again. We've already...
Well, I think if I'm on the winning side, can I amend that?
You'd have to do a motion to reconsider.
Reconsider? Yeah.
Can you do that in the same meeting?
Yes.
I believe so. Is that
Yes, you
correct?
can.
You can.
Thank you.
I think this is the time we have to do it, instead of doing it again, because I thought this was first reading, and after, I was on the wrong page, and I'm sorry, I apologize, but when you start throwing in 5 to 7 years of staff supervision and leadership experience for a minimum of 6 to 10 employees, that might pretty much eliminate anybody that we might have available locally, and I want to make sure we don't lose that opportunity if that's there. So what I would like to make is amend that.
A motion to reconsider.
To reconsider, that we maybe have, maybe, we should have some staff supervision, qualifications, but 5 to 7 years, is that too
Okay, I
restrictive?
think all you need to do is make a motion to reconsider the decision we made and get a second on it, and then we have...
Okay. Well, then I'd like to make a motion to reconsider the First Amendment.
Is there a second? Okay, motion's been made by Member Walker to reconsider the motion to use the proposed superintendent job description for advertising for the Power and Light superintendent position, and there was a second by Member Moreau. So it's back on the floor, so...
So not discussion, so I brought it up. I think that might restrict the field on who we can, because the more experience these people are going to bring with them, the higher the salary's going to be. So if you've got somebody that's got, 5 to 7 years of human standard, resource practices, that's going to add more to their, to the table. Is that something that we feel like we need to have in there to make sure that we capture that? Can we change that number to 2 or 3 years, or?
You'd have to make a motion to...
Yeah, well,
change
I
that.
thought that right now we're just in discussion, so I'm just...
Well, before you can discuss it, you'd have to make a motion to amend that proposal.
What I wanted to get here was a feel from the assembly, what their thoughts were on the amount of experience that they would, deem necessary to fulfill that position. So if that means a question to the city manager or to, Scott, I don't know who would I have to ask that question to before I'll make an amendment.
Debbie, he would have to make a motion to approve the specific change, if I'm not incorrect, right?
So we made a motion to reconsider.
Right.
Did we vote on it at all?
No, we didn't.
Point of clarification, that would be the first order of business is
Right.
voting on the motion to reconsider and then
Yes.
addressing it from there if the motion to reconsider passes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Back up.
Okay.
Clerk, call the roll on the motion to reconsider.
Jay?
No.
Brandy?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jeff?
No.
Kurt?
Yes.
Nancy?
No.
Okay. Tie. So it...
We do not reconsider.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, moving along.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity anyway.
Okay. Get me back on the right page, Debbie. Where are we at? We're talking about salaries, or did we vote to advertise for 90 to 110, and we're past
We voted
that?
that. Yeah, we're past that.
Okay, we're past that.
We're in new business.
That's what I thought. Okay, Resolution 2017-19, a resolution of the Petersburg Borough in support of United States Senate Bill 1323, the Young Fishermen's Development Act of 2017. I'd entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2017-19.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Stanton Greger, seconded by Member Mucci, to adopt Resolution 2017-19. Any discussion?
I just have one question.
Yes.
Who gives these resolutions to the city? I mean, it's always bugging me that these things just show up and I don't see anybody's name on how they got here. I mean,
Did this one come from Julie Decker? Wrangle passed the resolution supporting this. I don't know if the other communities did.
It went to Mark first,
Okay.
from Julie Decker and Rango, and
She's an
he
assembly
brought it to me.
person from
okay,
Wrangle.
yeah, I know, Julie. Was it possible when these resolutions show up to kind of maybe put a brief note on
Absolutely.
where they came from?
Yes.
I mean, it's just like they show up and I'm going, huh?
I'll start adding that up in a
Just
corner
little-
somewhere.
Just a little, something short.
Okay,
Thank you.
you bet.
Any other discussion on Resolution 2017-19? Clerk, call the roll.
Jay?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Resolution 2017-19 passes unanimously. Does anybody have any other communications other than the 3 letters we read earlier? Okay, seeing none. Assembly discussion items, recognitions. Is there any recognitions? That's item A under assembly discussion items. Okay.
Thank you. I guess if I'm going to be consistent, I should recognize the populace and voters of Petersburg for turning out great numbers. I've been asking for a huge voter turnout all through pretty much August and September, so I want to thank everyone for following through on that. And for an October election, we had an extremely large voter turnout, so thank you very much to the people of Petersburg for doing that.
Any other recognitions to be mentioned? Okay. Member Mucci asked to have a few items on the agenda. Should we start with the ones that were listed?
Sure.
Jeff, so the first one is process to follow to place items on a meeting agenda.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I was just curious how we get an item put on the agenda. Do we email the city clerk with a copy to the mayor? Do we email the mayor? I'm just trying to sort out how we're supposed to do it.
The best person to answer that would probably be the clerk, and we were talking about that today, and any assembly member can present something for the agenda.
Yep.
The only, if we're following Robert's Rules of Order, the decorum, the mayor accepts the agenda or puts on the agenda what he wants, but that can be, if I'm not misspeaking, that can be changed with an amendment at the first part of the meeting. So as far as getting it on the meeting agenda, just present it. There was a resolution that was presented to us 4, 5, 6 months ago that Member Lagadakis, Cindy, presented. So, yeah, I don't know, Jeff. Debbie?
I believe that to get anything on the agenda, any assembly member can bring it forward. You can email it to me. You can copy the mayor if you'd like, or you can bring it in to me. And then, so I believe any assembly member and the manager can put things on the agenda. Any department head that wants something on the agenda needs to go through the manager. But all of you may just present items to go on the agenda.
To clarify that, so getting you the proposed agenda item before noon Thursday before the meeting.
Way before noon Thursday if I have to get the agenda out on Thursday.
Absolutely.
Which, as you all know, I haven't been very good about, but I'm going to try real hard to make that happen.
Thank you, Clerk Thompson.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the next discussion item that Member Mucci wanted to talk about is Assembly Travel Authorization Procedure and Travel Expenses.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just curious how we come up with a plan to travel. Do we talk about it at a assembly level and come up with some kind of consensus to decide, like later on in the agenda here, we're talking about a possible trip to Washington, D.C. How do we start out as a group if we're going somewhere? Is that, if they're like where's the municipal league meeting in November? How do we come up with the
last formal action that I remember, and correct me if I've missed one, between when Mayor Dwyer was here and I was just a council member, we were discussing this. Basically, there was people wanted to travel to Alaska Municipal League.
Yep.
And it came down to a vote, and what was decided at that meeting was you could travel within Alaska, but if you're going to travel out of state, you had to get permission from the assembly, council assembly. And I don't know if that's been changed or if that was ever a formal thing. That was, we actually voted. Because more members wanted to go to AML than the mayor felt comfortable with, and so we voted with those parameters. But I don't think it's in code, so I don't know what we do.
And there is a travel budget, right?
16,000?
There is. It was 15,000 this year, yes. There is a travel budget.
Okay.
For the assembly.
For the assembly, yes.
Mr. Mayor, it's not about the travel budget. It's trying to determine what we feel is important to attend and how we, as a group, sort that out if we're going to go or not. That make sense?
Well, I could see your concern is whether it may be frivolous for people to go to these Alaska Municipal League meetings, or not frivolous, is it worth it?
Yeah, right.
I personally feel it is.
Yep.
Especially for newly elected officials.
Yep.
And you get a lot out of the meetings.
Yep.
Of what's going on in the state, but you could probably get that from emails too. But personal interaction,
Yep.
I feel, is important. That's.
Yep.
But as far as the procedure, when the money's gone, we don't go anywhere, I guess. I don't know. Unless the Assembly wants to.
Has this been an issue in the past with people wanting to travel so much that we've exceeded the budget or started to get there?
Well, we've definitely exceeded the travel budget a time or two, yes.
So
If I may, just what we do very shortly, as Jody and I start working on the budget with everyone, is we start estimating some of these things. And one of the things we do is send out emails to Assembly members and say, you planning on taking any trips? And if so, where to? And we use that as a kind of a guideline to say, okay, how much money should we put in the travel budget? The Assembly then has to approve that before it's ever implemented. Spur-of-the-moment stuff, we don't really have much of a process for that. So we could try to come up with something if you wanted for the Assembly's benefit, but currently, to be honest, we just don't have something. I mean, a Assembly member comes to us and says, I want to go to fill in the blank, and it's within, state of Alaska. Generally, if there's money in that budget, we're asking Jody's staff to fill the forms out and get it ready to go for you. So, I mean, unfortunately, it's about that relaxed.
Yeah.
So if I think there's something really important I need to go to as an Assembly member, I can just walk in and say, I want to go?
Currently, yes, as long as there's money in the budget.
How often do you think that's happened or been abused?
I don't think it's been abused, but it has happened. I mean, I'll step back an Assembly here. Mark was the mayor. Cindy was vice mayor. Bob Lynn was on the Assembly. And Bob signed up to be on the Sustainability Committee.
Or the policy.
Policy Committee with eight. Cindy was on another committee. Mark goes for the Council of Mayors. And it was not uncommon to have, 3 Assembly members going to the AML meeting. Okay. To my knowledge, that was never challenged among yourselves, and we just made sure to watch the budget close. We tend to over budget in that area to try to make up for some of that. And anyway, so it happened. Probably happened for very good reasons, but it's going to be much harder for us to be able to do that going forward.
Yep, thank you. And then, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, the personal finance.
Yeah, no, I was just talking about the travel expenses as well.
Oh, okay.
So the travel expenses, Assembly members are given a per diem based on, how does a per diem work?
The per diem is a per day thing, so it depends on what time you leave town and what time you come back.
Yep.
What meals you'll need. And also, if you're going to a conference, if they supply any meals, that should come out of the per diem that you take. You should not get per diem for that meal, basically. So it helps. It's very helpful to have a conference agenda so that you can see when meals are provided, when you have to set up per diem, but that isn't always the case.
Yep.
$60 a day, I believe, isn't it?
Correct, yes, $60 a day.
You need all 3 meals?
And so, does Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
So if the Assembly, is the Assembly given a borough credit card to use while they're traveling, or?
The mayor has a credit card. The Assembly members at this time do not. So you'll probably be given a per diem check before you leave.
And what is that credit card used for?
I guess the credit card would be used to pay hotel room, because I would have booked it but not paid for it with my credit card.
Okay.
If there's any rental vehicle okay, so it depends. Not always is there a per diem check cut. Sometimes it's the credit card used to buy meals and things like that.
Okay.
And then I keep receipts and.
Yeah, okay. Okay. All right, thank you. That answers that question. And I think, Mr. Mayor, on the personal conflict of interest, I think we kind of took care of that earlier in the meeting.
By putting that.
In that. Yep, I'm good there.
In that ordinance?
Yep.
And you had a couple other things you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was curious, we've had a couple...
Member Mucci, she had a
Oh,
question.
sorry, Nancy.
Hold on, Jeff. Member Strand?
In the travel part, is there a limit to the credit card use? Is there a dollar amount that?
I'm sure there is.
I think the credit card that I had before was $10,000, but
No, but I mean that the traveler can spend.
Well, yes. I mean, you would hope they would stay within the per diem costs, of course.
At $60 a day?
if you spend more than that, you would have to pay the borough back, I would assume, and I've done that in the past.
Through the mayor, if I
Yes.
may. I want to kind of, in particular, for the mayor's position, I mean, I'm not saying what you guys should do. It's more a question of, I mean, a lot of times at these conferences, particularly at the February one, where it's about legislative lobbying in a sense, although it doesn't really happen much anymore because there's no money. The credit card becomes useful. I mean, I'm playing mayor, and suddenly the opportunity is to have dinner with Senator Stedman and JKT, and your $60 isn't necessarily going to cover that. I mean, so that in the past, that's how it's been used. And then, if you've taken per diem, you give the per diem back and provide descriptions on the credit card receipt that says, I took Senator Stedman and JKT to dinner. That's entirely up to the Assembly how you want to handle that. That's how we've internally allowed that, is if there's a legitimate reason where you've taken per diem and then something like that comes up, Jody's staff won't really question it. Now, they don't want to see alcohol on the bill, and they want to see the per diem given back. So if you bought yourself dinner and the two folks give your dinner portion back, and we don't really question that you used the credit card and it exceeded the per diem. That's how it's currently done.
Okay.
So we try to give a certain amount of flexibility with that.
Does that answer your question as well, Nancy? Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other talk on the travel procedure? And we've covered the personal finance. You want to talk about appointment of mayor, Jeff?
Sure. I was looking at the ordinances, the charter over the weekend, and it says that the Assembly chooses an vice mayor to be seated before the first meeting in November. And I just wanted to, since we're not going to act on it tonight, to at least have it on the agenda for the next meeting that we're together, so we can at least sort out how we're going to fill that position.
That was totally my intention. Was
Okay.
Have it up to
I didn't hear anything about it, so I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, well, thanks for bringing it up. And was there one other item?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, over the last couple of meetings, you had letters submitted to the Assembly, one from Don Koenig, and we had another one showed up from Karen Ellingstad. And has it been the body's policy to respond to those letters, or do they just go into the black hole of the borough and they never see the light of day? What do we usually do with those kind of things?
I remember, now that you mention it, both letters I remember reading. Maybe it should be our policy to at least read them into the record under communications.
Mr. Mayor?
Does that make?
Well, I think they're read into the record when those people either address us up here, but, they're asking us for something. I think they're asking for a response to either a concern they have or a question that they have, and I'm just curious what the Assembly does with those kind of things.
Good. Jay?
Yeah, that's a great question. Speaking solely for myself, and I say this being accountable, I haven't responded to Ms. Ellingstad yet. I try to respond to every letter I can, as much, just a brief thank you for taking the time to write. Like Bo and Mario wrote their letter, I gave them a brief response. It's something from myself, not to speak for anyone else, that I find is important, to at least make sure it's acknowledged.
Yep.
I just think it's an important thing to do. I know when I write someone, I like to at least know they got it.
Right.
That's what I do, for whatever it's worth.
So it was to the Assembly, so like Jay just said, you could respond. I mean, if any formal action is going to be taken, like shutting the street sweeper off between 3 and 5 in the morning, then
But I mean,
Like the one
Mr. Mayor, I mean, do we respond to those letters, or do we just say thanks for sending them?
I would,
You mean from like a borough-wide perspective?
Yeah, from the assembly. They send it to the assembly, or they have a concern, and they want us to do something about it. I mean, even though we can't do anything about it, does the borough respond, or should the assembly respond to those kind of things?
May I, through the mayor?
yes, yeah.
Okay. We'll use Karen's as an example. Am I correct in saying, Carl, you reached out to her and talked through the issue with her? So what we don't necessarily have is the feedback mechanism to tell the assembly, oh, by the way, you guys got this letter, we saw it, we did something with it, here's what we said or did. So we can, when we're given that letter and it's in our world, we'll try to do a better job feeding back to you what we've said and done. Does that make sense, Carl?
Yeah, sure.
The challenge is some letters
would be great.
Yeah, sure. I mean, some letters are, I don't know if they come with a response. They're just, there's not much we can do. Maybe we need to say that, but we tend not want to throw somebody under the bus by saying, you wrote a letter and there's nothing we can really do about it at all, and in fact we're not even really looking in that direction. So not sure how to have a consistent policy that applies to every single letter, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay.
We like, for example, that one very clearly involved Public Works and some things we did, so Carl jumped right on it and did his normal magic to talk through the issue.
Mr. Mayor, one last comment there. But I do think it is common courtesy, because we are public servants, that somehow that no matter what letter is written to us, regardless whether it's for or against this, needs to have some sort of response, and I think a CC from whoever department is that's responsible for that should get it back to us. At least then we know that that we've responded to them, because I don't want them to think that we're unapproachable. Yeah.
And you said you'd try to make a point of telling us.
I think it's a worthwhile thing to try to do. I mean, it's and I suppose we can try to tell you what we've done or not done, and that this request is not something we can act on unless it comes in front of the assembly and put on an agenda or whatever. But a lot of things are just informational, and we can just feed back to you. Carl had a conversation. This is how it turned out. Here it is.
Perfect.
So.
Hey, thanks.
That'd be helpful. That would make that'd be great.
Okay, so at least we as an assembly know that the letter was responded to.
Yes.
Right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd just like to say that please keep in mind that when the person sending you the email only sends it to the assembly, we have no idea. We don't see it. So unless you forward it to us, we don't know it exists.
Good point.
Thank you.
And that happens frequently. Often we don't know that a letter exists until you bring it in and say, hey, what do you think of this? And we're like, I have no clue what you're talking about. So
it's our responsibility to forward on information.
Forward it on to us or check who they sent it to. If they've already sent it to us, we can move on it. But if they have not, it helps if we know if you want us to respond.
Yeah, thank you.
So Debbie, you did make a point to have the mayor's, the ballot on the next.
Oh, the vice mayor, yes.
Vice mayor, yeah.
Yes.
Not the mayor. Okay, so anything else under discussion items other than the trip to Washington, D.C.? I didn't write down what items you wanted to add, Jeff.
Those
Did
were
it all cover?
talked to most of them. Are you talking about the Washington, D.C. trip?
Well, yeah, it's just that I'm thinking back, it was over a year ago, we were talking with our lobbyist in Washington, D.C., Brad Gilman, and he thought it was important to come back and have face-to-face meetings with your delegation back there, and some of the issues I think are important are the Coast Guard base, which we haven't got an answer from, but Senator Sullivan's on that committee. Dredging, the core dredging. I think there's some important issues to discuss in person back there, but it's that trip is at the will of the assembly. And Debbie did come up with a price tag, and I can't remember what she.
And I think it was $2,500 to $3,000 approximately.
That's 2 days of meetings and.
Per person, yes.
Per person, yeah. So that's. I just wanted to get it on people's radar. our lobbyist sent dates, and the one date that he wanted at least a 2-week lead time, and there was 4 sets of dates, and that's starting in November, but the one that fit best for my schedule was the 11th to the 14th of December, and that was the last one that would be available, last time frame that would be available till after Christmas, and then after the Christmas break, and then the Congress reconvenes. So anyway, that is, we could, if anybody else wants to talk about it, we could talk about it and take formal action at another meeting, or?
Mr. Mayor, I just have one question. Is SRS off the table now? I know all those.
No,
so that's something else that we could put on.
Yes, that is something else. And that
Okay.
would, if we did pick a date, and we did figure out who wanted to go, maybe if it was just myself, or if there was the manager, or whatever the assembly felt was appropriate, secure rural schools is another topic that we need to.
Perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was included. Yeah.
Hasn't that been extended again, kind of, sort of?
At this point, they have not renewed it.
Right, but
they keep talking about it.
Right.
Yeah. Keep it on the radar.
Right.
Yeah.
Jeff?
So would it be possible to get kind of a list of, if we were to go back to Washington, D.C., would it be possible to have a pretty thorough list of what we were talking about and who we were going to be talking with? I mean, I know it's important to go back to Washington, D.C. From time to time, but unless there's a real urgent reason to go back there, and we're paying a couple of lobbyists a lot of money to do a lot of our legwork, me personally, I'd just kind of like to wait until we get the call from them telling us that now is the time to come back and meet with your congressional delegation or people who are involved with the Coast Guard funding. I think with the reduced revenues we're seeing and the tight budgets we're looking at, I think we really have to be conservative on the monies we're going to be spending. And I'd like to see a pretty thorough list of topics that we're going to be discussing in Washington, D.C. and the people that we're going to be seeing. And before I'd be comfortable saying, yeah, let's just go back to Washington, D.C.
And I think that has been the protocol in the past, for the assembly to decide what items are going to be talked about, and then who have to tell the people that did travel back, if they do, that's the topics you discuss, and that's, yeah. But I know our lobbyists, Debbie, you were going to say something?
Well, actually, Steve just had a good suggestion. We could, if you'd like, have our lobbyists call in, like maybe at the next meeting, and talk about what issues what would be good to go, to who would be good to go see, and what issues should be discussed. I don't know.
That would be helpful.
Would it work better with the 4-hour time difference if he did that on the 20th? Would that still give us?
Yeah, it totally would, I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure he would appreciate that.
Because that would still give us the 2-week lead time that he needs. So then if he feels it's important, fine. If the assembly doesn't, but, whatever he says. But I know he's expressed concerns that we don't go back there and meet person to person enough, but you don't need to go back there every year. It's been 3 years, Steve, since we've been back? And if this trip happened again this year, it'd be the second time in 10 or 11 years that someone personally went back to Washington, D.C. to represent Petersburg. So anyway, that's why I just wanted to put it on the agenda, but yeah, if we could, maybe we should start coming up with a list of topics that we feel is important to talk about. The staff could give us some, the three, the Coast Guard, the dredging, and rural schools.
Send us emails on
Okay.
topics that are of interest to you. Sorry, my apologies. One of the things that's always important is we may have issues that we think are really important, and that's what you pay the lobbyist for, is to run it by him and say, you're not going to get much headway on that right now, so that's probably not one you want to spend a lot of time talking about. So it's kind of a two-way thing. You build a list, and then you go back to the lobbyist and say, here's our list. How many of these do you think are worth talking about? And they may have other things that this would be a real good time to talk about because of what's going on in D.C. at that particular moment in time. So I think that two-way conversation with the lobbyist is probably pretty important to kind of narrow down the list. You don't want to go into Senator Murkowski's office with 12 things to talk about. You're not going to get very far.
No, that's good. We would use our lobbyist. And if I remember right, the last trip we made back, isn't that where we found out about the new, or the dredging funding that we were available to get? With
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons the trip gets kind of expensive is because you have to build in, not only because of the travel, but you kind of want to build in some downtime because if something comes up and you need to go meet with one of the agencies, which is, in this case, the Corps of Engineers, you want to have a little bit of time to do that. It's real hard for them to pull those kind of meetings together, like, with an hour's notice. I mean, it generally can be, whoops, yeah, I'll try to get you into the Corps before you leave town. So you kind of, if you're going to make the whole trip out there, and not that hotels aren't cheap out there, but you kind of want to make sure you spend enough time there that if something comes up, they can try to make those arrangements for us, for you.
Okay. Is there any other discussion items? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting's adjourned at 8:22.